So yeah, just as I was saying, we're both involved on the music end. Brian is definitely our mad scientist in the studio. I kind of contribute on sort of a higher level, and then also manage the business side of things. So the division of labor works really well. And if you guys are ever um, working with, production partner, or, in a group, in a band, that kind of thing. I think it's always good to try to find people that have really complementary skills to bring to the table. And so we've always, recognized that we sort of have different strengths, and it kind of works really well together. Um, so just in terms of the, sort of how we work, we're a totally independent group. We aren't signed to any labels or anything. We actually set up our own company as an LLC, and decided that we wanted to manage the whole business ourselves, just because it gives us the freedom and the creativity to do what we want to do. And quite honestly, at this point that we're at right now, there's a lot that you can do on your own, and in some ways, there's less and less that a label can do for you. Not to say that, you should be out there doing everything on your own and that you're going to make it to the top without any help. But I think it's about, maintaining as much control as you can for as long as you can, and then strategically sort of outsourcing help where you need it on the marketing end, on the promotion end, et cetera. So one question that we get a lot is, aside from the music stuff, is, how do you guys promote your music? Or, another question we get a lot, people send us an email and say, hey, I've got $3,000, I want to market my album, what should I do? So I'm going to talk sort of just from that angle a little bit about how we've approached things, and sort of this would be my recommendation for someone who's sort of just starting out, maybe putting out a first album, trying to build up their reputation, sort of where I would go. The first thing I would say to do before you spend any money on anything related to promotion and marketing is make sure there's an audience out there for your music. And there's so many ways to do that these days, where you can really just test the reaction to your music. And when I say test the reaction, I mean beyond playing it for your friends, beyond playing it for your family, get feedback, and kind of see what people's reaction is. So, I think Brian and I started working on Trifonic music probably, like 2002, 2003. So we didn't put out Emergence till 2008. But we had kind of been slowly evolving our sound and working on stuff for a long time. A few years before putting out Emergence, sort of I would say the first sort of public unveiling of Trifonic was we had started entering some remix contests on the site CC Mixter. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but it was the kind of site where, several years ago they were running a lot of remix contests, and we would go on, and they would have one of them was like a Wired magazine remix contest where they had tracks from like the Beastie Boys and like 10 different groups, and you could use those stems to do a mashup. And they had several other contests. And so we were putting our stuff in there, and we were getting voted into like the top, whatever in the contest. We were either winning or being in like the top 3 or 4, and we could just tell from this community of DJs and remixers that people were really responding to it. So that was like probably our first indication of like, hey, we're doing something here that we like it, but we're also getting like a really positive response, and beyond just oh, that's cool, but like really like, wow, this is really impressive. This is really amazing. So not saying that to like, toot our own horn, but it was just that we were getting feedback that was encouraging us to go down the path of spending more time and more resources on what we were doing. Another good place to test, I think, I don't know if you guys have heard of Our Stage. It's another like sort of contest site where you can, upload your tracks and people will vote on it. And it's just one of those places where people that are looking for like new music are going to go and check it out. And then everywhere else you can put it out online, Facebook, MySpace, all this. There's just ways to collect feedback. So that's always where I tell people to start. Then the second thing I would say is if you're getting that really positive feedback, then you want to, I would say, either find someone who really knows online marketing well or educate yourself and learn. And I would say that regardless of whether you're going to focus on marketing yourself or whether you're going to have someone else do it for you, whether it's a friend, whether you're going to hire someone to do it on your behalf, you should know the basics. You know, it's just like if you were going to invest money, you probably, it's not a good idea to just hand it off to someone and just say, go invest this for me. You should probably have a sense, a little bit of what they're doing on your own. So again, there's a lot of great resources out there. Topspin, I think, is a great place to learn. So I've worked some with Topspin in the past, helping manage some of their marketing campaigns for artists. So that's sort of why I'm familiar with it. And there's a lot of other great resources out there too, but I've just kind of pulled up a couple here. They have this blog where they'll write about, you know, some of the things that they're working on. They'll go through case studies of artists that they work with. So it's just a good resource for kind of just getting your mind around some of the best practices for online marketing. They have this green room community where it's a lot of independent artists and managers and music marketers that are, you know, basically just, you know, posting questions. It's some forums that I think are also, there's just great information there. And they also have this knowledge base where it just, you know, covers like the basics of direct-to-fan marketing, you know, best practices in terms of building a website, in terms of managing email lists, like all this kind of stuff that, you know, at the end of the day really can make a big difference in sort of how, you know, how much your music gets out there. Beyond that, you know, what I've done over the years is just, you know, reading a lot of music blogs, like business blogs, just general like tech blogs, just keeping up to date on what's going on and just experimenting with stuff. You know, I'm probably every new like music startup that I read about or, you know, anything related to like marketing, I'm probably signing up for and testing it, and a lot of it's crap. But, you know, I'm just seeing what's out there, and sometimes you can just get really, you'll get inspired to you know, try new stuff just by kind of poking around and seeing what's out there. So, you know, that's always a good thing to do. And then the third thing I would say, you know, sort of after you've kind of tested your music and after you kind of, you know, feel pretty confident about ways to approach it, is you just want to map out a strategy. There's sort of two key parts to a strategy. One is, you know, you need to have a clear goal in mind, like, you know, what are you trying to get out of promoting your music? Is it you're trying to make as much money as you can? Is it that you want, you know, as many people in the world to be exposed to your music? Maybe it's a specific goal, like you want your music to take you around the world. You want to go on tour. You know, I think for Brian and I, we kind of realized that our personalities and the music that we're making, we weren't necessarily interested in like, you know, being DJs and like going around doing a lot of club shows and that kind of thing. But we were more interested in figuring out a way that we could just do stuff in the studio and ideally not have to spend that much time outside of the studio, but that we could make a living being there. And, you know, we kind of felt like our music lent itself well to, you know, maybe film composing, video game composing, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the vision that we had for where we wanted to go with it. And so then that helps us decide not only, you know, how we go about kind of marketing the music, but it also, I think it feeds back into the creative aspect. You know, we don't worry about like, oh man, we have to make, you know, a hit club song so that we can go play it in a club. We just kind of keep doing what we do and know that, you know, we can find like a purpose and a time and a place for it. So I think once you sort of have a goal, you know, like I guess the way I think about it is you kind of need to have like your life plan and your business plan, and so your life plan will kind of guide your business plan a little bit. So kind of having your goal and then kind of thinking step by step how you're going to go about and achieve that. So, you know, it's sort of like what technology are you going to use? What steps are you going to take to reach your goal? You know, if your goal is say like, hey, I want to be able to do a 30-city U.S. tour by the end of next year, then, you know, there's some clear steps that you can take for doing that. You know, another question we get, you know, people will say, oh, you know, what are the best strategies that have worked for you in terms of promotion, and what has not worked at all. So, I guess one thing that I think has worked well for us, and one thing that we've just kind of found works for promoting music, and what I would recommend, again, like when people, back to this question of, how would you spend your money if you had a promotion budget, how would you spend it? I really think creating compelling content is the most important thing to do. There's a lot of industries where, buying advertising and, paying for a lot of PR can pay off. Economics of the music business, and especially today, I think it's going to be pretty hard for you to justify, spending thousands of dollars advertising, especially when you're just starting out. But making good content is a great way to promote. So, I think for Brian and I, one thing that we kind of hit on was, Brian showed you this Parks and Fire video before. Like that was a thing that we got our friend Scott Pagano to do. And that ended up, getting we got a lot of exposure out of that. It ended up getting picked up by the Apple site because of the sort of, not only, I think, less about the music, but just more about the video. He's like sort of a well-known digital video artist in that field. And so it ended up getting picked up by Apple, kind of featured on their site. And just within that community, it kind of caught on a little bit and premiered at different art festivals and that kind of thing. And it was sort of this audience of people that I think also ended up being interested in the kind of music we were doing. So that was like one thing where it was just like, hey, there's this cool piece of content that we were a part of that really helped us promote. Another thing is this Next Step audio blog that we started. That has been just actually really amazing promotion for us in terms of just driving traffic back to our Trifonic site, and you can see that more people are listening to it and downloading our tracks and buying stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's nextstepaudio.com. Here, I'll pull it up here. So this, we were realizing that we were getting a lot of questions. People were always interested in, hey, how do we make our music? So we just said, hey, we're just going to start a production blog where we just kind of talk about how we do stuff. And so again, like just doing something that's relatively simple like that has ended up also doing a lot for us. It's, we just record the videos on this laptop here. It's pretty cheap to just set up a blog, and it's the kind of thing where, we've done a couple things on, like Ableton Live or using Logic or just all the stuff that we use. But then those companies end up noticing the videos and they say, hey, we're going to put this on our site too, or they give a little shout out on their blog. So it kind of works for us. I'll show you guys a funny video that we made for Parks on Fire. This was our sort of mildly successful attempt at doing something kind of viral. But this was our first video before the official one. Let me give you the background on this. So when Brian and I were working on Emergence, we would be up late and we would turn on the TV, and for some reason we would always be flipping through and we'd catch PBS, and they would always have these like concert series on, like whatever, these classical concerts, and we would always be laughing at the footage. I mean, because these guys were getting so intense, like the conductors and the whatever, the soloists were so intense, and but it was just kind of cheesy. And then we were saying, hey, this would be cool to kind of like put it to our music. So Diamond Center Paul released this video that we kind of just actually had spliced up some of the footage that we just found on YouTube, and we thought it was pretty funny. It's actually the reaction to it was pretty funny. If you ever look at this on YouTube, you can kind of see some of these comments, and a lot of people actually didn't understand that this was a joke, or they were very offended that somebody took like this great music and put it to this thing that wasn't real. And so it's actually pretty funny. But I'll just show you guys a little bit about this. Anyway, you guys get the idea. So let you watch the rest of that later if you want. But yeah. So again, I think basically, ultimately, just comes down to creating interesting stuff and then making it easy for people to share is the best way to go. So you know, um, basically, yeah, just we try to have the centerpiece really be our music and make it very easy for people to listen to it, making our stems available so that people can remix it and play with it and engage with it. Um, Making it easy for people like on our website. It's funny, like you actually go to so many websites, like especially from artists, and there's like an intro page, and you got to kind of hunt around and try to figure out where can I actually hear the music. I think just making it very easy for people to find stuff. So like, this is our home page. It's just there's the video. Click on to listen to more music, and if you want to get it, and if you want to download something for free, then it's just all right there. So just make it easy for people to find it and stream it and share it. Another really important strategy that I've sort of been thinking more and more about, and that I want to focus on more, is this idea of sharing audience with other artists. I think a lot about this model, like the co-op record label model, where you have sort of a collective of artists that all kind of co-own the label, but they're kind of sharing resources. They're sharing marketing resources, they're sharing knowledge, and also they're sharing audience. It's really hard just on your own to go build up a big fan base. Building up a fan base requires a lot of time anyway, and I think Brian and I have found that it's hard to force it. It just takes time to do. And I think any successful artist would tell you that it took them years and years and years to sort of build up the audience and the momentum to get to a point where they were like, oh hey, everybody knows about us. So like really working with other artists to do that is something that I think is really interesting. In terms of what has worked really well for us, in terms of what actually like probably we saw the most significant jump was just having Parks on Fire be on the Hybrid Sound System compilation was just like a big boost for us that I don't think anything else that we could have done on our own would have replicated. Just the fact that they put out an album to their audience that our song was on, and then a lot of people said, hey, who is this Trifonic? And that has led to a lot of good things for us. So besides like being on a compilation, I just think that there's a lot of ways you can do that. Yeah. So actually, we got contacted by them about it, about having that song. So sorry, the question was how Parks on Fire ended up on the Hybrid Sound System compilation. So basically what had happened is we had been just sending the track out in its almost final version to friends, DJs and producers and that kind of thing that we knew. It actually ended up being like a friend of a friend who had a copy of it, who then Hybrid was in their studio and then heard it and said, hey, what is this? And then it kind of started from there. So again, just like another reason to just get your music out there and be sharing constantly with people, because you never know whose hands it's going to end up and whose ears it's going to touch. But yeah, just in terms of like taking advantage of other artists who have an audience that you can overlap with. So one example from Topspin that I thought was really interesting. So there was this rock band called Fanfarlo. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're sort of relatively new group. And I was helping work on managing their release and sort of coming up with some marketing strategies around that. It ended up that they, through a series of connections, had a link in to Sigur Rós. And Sigur Rós, kind of ended up liking the music, and so they were able to work it out that Sigur Rós sent an email out to their list of saying like, hey, there's this new group, Fanfarlo. by the way, they're doing this promotion right now where they're giving the album away for, or they're selling it for $1 for like a month. So this combination of having like a really good offer, but then obviously like you're going out to the Sigur Rós emailing list with their endorsement, like that was a huge, huge bump for them. And what was interesting about looking at that campaign is a lot of the things, and I think Brian and I have seen this in our own experience too, a lot of the exposure that you would imagine would lead to a lot of, new fans and a lot of purchases actually doesn't move the needle much, and then relative to just, seeing something like Sigur Rós say, hey, you should check out this band, just their credibility with their audience, the response rate that you see to something like that is just so much more than, if like NPR, features your album and writes it up. Like I would have thought like that would be amazing, or you see you see these albums and artists written up on like big blogs and publications. But I was actually surprised just in seeing some of the top spin data and some of the artists that I was involved with, of just seeing like how how few purchases that kind of stuff actually leads to in today's world. So I really believe that word of mouth, having recommendations come from trusted sources is really the most important thing to do, and that just really comes from, again, I think building great content and building those relationships with folks. So it's I think again, like with Brian and I, as we kind of think ahead, we kind of think about how can we get a little bit more connected with other artists that we admire, that that we're in touch with and that we have a relationship with, but just in terms of marketing, like sort of doing more stuff together. So like Next Step Audio, we've been slowly trying to get other artists involved in doing that, so that it's not just about like, oh, this is where Trifonic has our videos, but try to get some other folks involved. So I really like this idea of building like a shared audience, and I think that's one of the best things. Yeah, so the question was about where we get most of our licensing opportunities. So some of it we do directly. So again, just by getting our music out there and building up our artist sort of reputation, I guess, like we've been approached for some things, like our CSI licensing has all come from, the music supervisor for CSI saw one of our remixes on the CC Mixter site, got in touch with us, asked us about other music, and we ended up sort of developing a relationship from there. So again, just like being out there, and that worked. Then we work with a couple other companies. We've worked with Rumblefish in the past, Getty Images as well. Or it used to be called Pump Audio. So these sites where they'll just you just sign a contract that says you can, on my behalf, non-exclusively license stuff to TV shows, etc. For a few reasons we've stopped working with some of those companies, but I think it's a really good way to just get out there. Yeah.
So I had a question online. What are the most profitable endeavors versus the most enjoyable ones? And examples of this were like teaching, selling CDs, MP3s, licensing.
Yeah. Definitely the most profitable is licensing, and that is enjoyable in in one sense. It's also nice to get paid for something that you've already done and doesn't require that much more work, other than like negotiating with the person at CBS and signing a contract. So that's nice. In terms of enjoyment, I think we're probably happiest just making music in the studio. Also doing stuff like this, just like teaching and kind of sharing the knowledge, and we're really having fun with this Next Step Audio blog and just doing that kind of stuff. I think down the road there's definitely potential for that kind of stuff to be like more lucrative in terms of earning money, but that's definitely enjoyable. So I guess just the flip side, just back to sort of one of the things I was talking about, just this, we get this question of what have been the most effective strategies for sort of getting the name out. We also get the question, what didn't work at all. I think blog outreach was something that we spent a lot of time trying to do when we first released Emergence, and that I would say for the amount of time that it took to try to like hound down these bloggers that we thought were like really influential and whatever. Like it just it takes too much time and they don't care, and I don't think that that paid off at all. Um, One thing that I think is sort of in the middle ground that we've experimented a little bit with is like online radio. So like Last FM, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they have these campaigns where you can buy like a certain number of plays for relatively cheap. You know, you can, I don't know, it's like $20 and they'll like play your song to like 100 different people or, you know, whatever. There's these different packages. We've experimented a little bit with that. I would say sort of inconclusive at this point, like how much it paid off. But, you know, again, my feeling of just the economics of music is, you know, it's hard to justify sort of like paying for audience these days, just because just for the return that you get on it, it's pretty low. Like just in general, from like a like online marketing perspective, you know. So so what I do right now for my day job, I work for an internet startup called Bloomspot, which is like an e-commerce site. And so it's interesting because, you know, basically just learning from that and just past experiences, you can always acquire, like, you know, for an email list, you can always acquire subscribers by like running ads on Facebook or on Google. And, you know, I'm sure you could get a lot of people to listen to your music if you bought banner ads, and, you know, you could get people to sign up for your email list. But their level of engagement in sort of what you're doing is going to be much, much, much lower than someone who, you know, friend says, "Hey, you should check out this band Trifonic," and then they come. Like, you know, those people are going to be 10 times more likely to, you know, come to your show or buy your album or even care about what you're doing. So, yeah. So, yeah. So the question is how we go about sort of measuring our engagement on our website. So we use Google Analytics, which, you know, is pretty common, and we're also on Topspin, and so there's we use that to manage our email list, and that is actually also a really great opportunity to track stuff. So, yeah, yeah.
What takes up the most of your time from a kind of promotion or marketing perspective that maybe you know, if the price was right or that, you know, the service provider was right, you would kind of offload onto them and streamline your kind of setup?
Yeah. So the question was, what takes up most of our time in terms of promotion? You know, it's a good question. I think, you know, because of the approach that we're taking, you know, probably stuff like doing this production blog probably takes up like a lot of time. You know, and just little, you know, stuff of just like maintaining a website and maintaining your social networking profiles and all that stuff can take time. So, you know, I guess probably if we were going to spend more money on that, it would probably just, you know, be having like an intern or an assistant or someone just to help manage that, or like, you know, we record a video and someone else can kind of edit it and get it ready to put up on the website. So I think just more administrative stuff like that at this point. Yeah. Well, we've kind of hit our time limit of 6, but if you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to kind of answer a few more. Yeah. No, we actually had a graphic design firm do that. Yeah. So yeah, so the question was about if we've had good conversion rates with our site and Topspin. I would say like we're just below that level of like regular like traffic to the site where it's a little bit hard to judge. At a certain point, you need to kind of get to like a certain scale of traffic, I feel like, to kind of really start to gather a lot of meaning out of the data, and where you get to the point of kind of optimizing. Um, you know, I think probably just some of the changes we've made, we've noticed a big difference. So for example, we used to have our blog be our front page, and just going to this very simplified version, we've seen definitely more like click through to the store page, more people signing up for our email list, more people purchasing for sure. Also, the starting this Next Step audio production blog, we've seen a big increase in terms of just overall traffic and purchasing and all that stuff too. So, yeah. Yeah. So the question was, what do we think is missing in the music industry for artists coming up? Um, yeah, I think there's two things that I've thought about a lot. I think one sort of touches on an earlier point that I was making about um, sites and services that are more geared towards helping artists collaborate with each other and sort of build an audience together and share resources. Um, Everything right now is so focused on promoting yourself. You know, having your MySpace page, having your Facebook page, and all this stuff, and it's great. But I feel like the next step is going to be, you know, like sites that focus on helping artists connect with each other. There's a few things here and there that I've seen that I think are starting to go in that direction, which I think are exciting. But that's one thing. The second thing I've also think about is just in terms of booking live music. Um, the process is really, again, it's pretty inefficient, I think, and it can be really time consuming just to try to reach out to like these small venues and say, hey, like we're this group, we want to play, and it's so much back and forth, and you know, in some ways, it's still very much. I think it's stuck a little bit back in time, you know, where it's still this model of sending a press kit and, you know, showing them where you've been written up and showing them maybe, you know, how many Facebook fans you have or whatever. But, um, you know, I kind of like this idea of, you know, you may have seen these sites. There's a site like Kickstarter now, and some artists are using these models where people can kind of, you know, they set a goal and say, hey, you know, if I get 100 pre-orders for my album, I'll, you know, go ahead and press it up and make vinyl or whatever. Um, so I'd kind of like to see something like that for for live music too, where it says, hey, you know, we'll play a show if 50 people will buy a ticket, you know, and I don't know, just kind of flipping the model around. Anyway, yeah. Sorry. Yes. Yes. The question was if we've played with Eventful at all, and I do like I like that idea a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was wondering what outlets of getting the word of mouth marketing going has been the best. So there have been some word of mouth sites that you found particularly successful.
Yeah. I think yeah, I mean I think probably, you know, CC Mixter was probably one of the biggest ones for us, again, just because we were kind of involved in that community for a period of time. Um, so, and it was like, again, these people that were looking for, you know, good music to remix and kind of play with. So that was sort of a good place for us to go. I think the 61.com is also a really good site. It's another one of these sites that's kind of geared towards music discovery where people are kind of looking for new stuff. So I think that's also been a good place for us to seed our music. And then probably just also just putting stuff on BitTorrents ourselves and just, you know, kind of letting people download it is another good way to just get it out there. And, you know, it's funny, you know, you hear still so many people that are scared of having their stuff downloaded. And, you know, my kind of thought is like, if you aren't being like pirated, then you aren't, you know, aren't on the radar. And, you know, we find probably like our most popular tracks that are getting downloaded the most on like a BitTorrent are also the ones that people are buying the most too. So they can sometimes go hand in hand. Is there another question? Yeah.
You say there's a get music and merch now. Do you find that you actually sell music and merchandise directly through your site, or does that link to iTunes or something like that?
Yeah. So this links directly to our store, and you know, we definitely we definitely would like people to buy it as much like through us as we can. The reason being that you know, like working through something like Topspin is then we kind of own that relationship with the fan. So you know, rather than iTunes, like you know, owning that you know relationship, they know who purchased the album. Then it's like we know it, and this person is potentially someone that we can email about future stuff. So to us, you know, I think that's really important, and I definitely would recommend that everybody, you know, you have to make your music available everywhere. Like people are going to buy stuff on iTunes, people are going to buy stuff on Amazon. You can't change that behavior, so you want your stuff there, but you should also give people an option and maybe an extra reason to come buy something directly from you. You know, Topspin is great, although you know it's harder for folks just starting out to get on just because they have some minimum requirements. Bandcamp is another great service. They have a great product, and it's the same thing. Like all the payments just come directly to you, and you're building up that relationship directly. So, yeah. Anything else? Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming out and spending what was actually a beautiful day inside with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks. And thanks to everyone on the internet.